Okay, it is right at 10:30, so we are going to get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jean Boone, and on behalf of TIA, we are here with our case study, Telemedicine in Clinical Trials Beyond Video Calls. This sponsored event is brought to you by TIA in cooperation with Curebase. Before we begin, just have to read a quick disclosure for you. The views and opinions expressed in the following PowerPoint slides are those of the individual presenter and should not be attributed to DIA, its directors, officers, employees, volunteers, members, chapters, councils, communities, or affiliates, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. These PowerPoint slides are the intellectual property of the individual presenter and are protected under the copyright laws of the United States of America and other countries, used by permission with all rights reserved. DIA and the DIA logo are registered trademarks or trademarks of Drug Information Association, Inc. All other trademarks are the property of their respective owners. So if you happen to have a question or would like to join in the chat, please feel free to enter your comments in the chat or the Q&A. We will have time at the end for Q&A, and our presenter will address those either as they come up that seem pertinent at the time or at the end of this session. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Adam Swanson. Adam is the Senior Director of Clinical Operations and Customer Success with Curebase. Adam, why don't you take it away?
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the introduction, and thanks everybody for taking the time to join. This is really an exciting series for us. You know, there's some excellent presenters that are part of this program, so I feel fortunate to be part of the presentation here. So yeah, I'm Adam Samson. I'm the Senior Director of Clinical Operations at Curebase. At Curebase, we offer both software and services in the decentralized clinical trial space. So on the software side, eConsent, eCOA, ePro. On the services side, things that align well with our product, you know, that being the project management, data management, and we also operate a virtual site, meaning that we have coordinators and principal investigators who are actually able to interact directly with participants. So we have a lot of experience with this topic here, that being, you know, how telemedicine is used in clinical trials and how you really have to consider it from beyond the perspective of, you know, just a kind of a simple video call, and some of the specific applications that we've used and we've learned over time. We wanted to go ahead and share that with this group here today in hopes that it might help folks as we continue to use these solutions more in the future. Just a bit about my background. So prior to coming to Curebase, I actually started as a coordinator a bit over 10 years ago. Moved into CROs as, you know, monitor project manager, spent some time in academia, was at a large pharmaceutical company running large late phase trials when the pandemic hit. And it was kind of an eye-opening experience for me trying to, you know, manage a study that was in multiple countries and all the changes and limitations we were having with COVID and trying to find ways to have study continuity. Saw the opportunity to hop on board with Curebase and really, you know, be one of the people who's trying to take the technology that's being used well in other industries and really apply it here within clinical trials. So with that, I'll hop right into the presentation. Again, as far as questions are concerned, feel free to pop them in the chat at any point. I'll probably make sure that I save time at the end. That way we can make it through the presentation. All right, so to start off, I just wanted to kind of level set around the term telemedicine, at least for use in this presentation here today. Of course, everyone on this call knows that, you know, clinical research and clinical practice vary in many ways, and one of them is how we use this term telemedicine. I have the definition here for Medicaid, right? So telemedicine seeks to improve a patient's health by permitting two-way, real-time, interactive communication between the patient and the physician or practitioner at the distant site. Now, that's not really how we would define it when you hear the use of telemedicine in clinical research or in clinical trials generally. But at the same time, we don't really have anywhere yet a standard definition around what the use or what the term telemedicine means within the context of a clinical trial. And generally, you see it broadly used to, encompass basically anything that has a, that audio video component as part of a visit between the clinical research site staff and participants. I think that over time, there's great work happening through organizations such as the Clinical Trial Transformation Initiative and the Decentralized Trials and Research Alliance to align around, common definitions. And I think, the use of something like telemedicine, televisits, telehealth will really become more solidified. But for the purposes of today, telemedicine just means, we have a remote interaction containing both audio and video when we're conducting remote visits with participants. So the question, why isn't a standard video call enough? So when you're conducting a clinical trial visit, having just, kind of like I won't use brand names here, right? But having just a simple video call where basically like now I'm sharing my screen, it can be really difficult for the investigator, for the site staff, to do all the other tasks that they need to do to complete that study visit. Things like consenting, collecting and recording participant information, reviewing eligibility. For certain studies, capturing images is really something that's important. And also, if the investigator needs to have some sort of visual analysis of participant conditions, these are the kind of things that we think about at Curebase when we are trying to build out a telemedicine platform integrated within a system that really meets all these needs. So what I mean here is, if right now I'm, say we were on a telemedicine visit for a clinical trial, and I'm the investigator, and I'm, interacting with you as a participant. If I needed to now say, record data in the eSource, I would have to move over to my other screen here. I'd have to open a separate browser. That can be very cumbersome. It can require additional logins, and it just makes the whole experience not ideal, not seamless, right? So we try and really take whatever we can and integrate it within a single platform, such that the participant, the investigator, are logging into this platform. Within that, they're having the experience of their telemedicine visit, but also it's split screen, so they can see the consent form, they can see other information that might need to be reviewed, and we can set up different views for different users. So we'll dig more into each of those as we go along here, but wanted to define really, who are the users, and I know it seems obvious, but I think I've learned over the past year and a half or so that I've been with Curebase to really, kind of take a beat from the software folks and this UX research that's really done extensively in that space. I think should be applied a lot more to clinical trials, trying to understand who your end users are, what their full journey or their experience within this clinical trial will be like. And to do that, we really have to, have a deep understanding of both the participant population, but also the site staff for any given study. On the participant side, right, what the condition is or age. Age is one that, we don't like to generalize, but, we know when interacting with a digital platform, when interacting with telemedicine, if we're trying to make sure that we remind these participants, if they're millennials, and we try to pick up the phone and call them and leave them a voicemail, of course, we're not going to have much luck there, right? We know that in general, this population likes SMS text, and many do now. So making sure that you understand that patient population upfront, so that you can design and provide optionality as well, taking the notifications as an example, having an integrated platform that can, be selected for their preference, whether it's email or text message or phone call. These are the type of things that, improve that user experience and really make the best chance that you'll get people as part of that telemedicine visit to show up and to have a good experience. The site staff also need to be taken into consideration here. This is, new technology for many of us, and the site staff have a lot of stuff that they do as part of these visits. I'm sure many of you have worked on that side as I have, and there's a million things to do as part of any given study visit, and things have to be done in sequence. And if you don't have a workflow that's integrated with your interaction with the participant, it's quite easy to kind of either skip over something or forget something. So having that, again, integrated within a platform, the telemedicine video call on one side, and all the things that you need to complete as the site staff on the other. We really like to try and do as much as we can up front to solicit feedback from site staff, and even when we can from participant groups. I think there's a lot of research now to show that, working with patient advocacy groups and others to solicit information from patients about their preferences early on during protocol development, and when you're developing your solutions, including something like telemedicine, can really help to inform what specific needs you'll have to have in place in order to give a good experience there. On the site staff side, again, that visit management and visit preparation. So if I'm a site staff member and I want to prepare for a visit, it used to be I would, get the participant's chart, right? And I would have all these things ready. I'd be able to review things prior to the call. Try and do the same thing when you're building out your platform solution, including telemedicine, so that when that site staff member, prior to their visit, you can even make it such that there's a workflow. So as they go into that telemedicine experience, the system knows, okay, the site staff member is likely gonna, need to have this next set here in order for them to complete this data, and to have it in a logical place such that they can, go into the visit prepared and really have a successful experience. Building solutions around user needs is critical. We've talked some about the other things that are happening as part of this telemedicine visit. Image capture, we have a couple case studies that we'll go through in just a moment here that will help to really show how image capture and video capture and some of these other things like zooming in and out, let's say, as part of a standard video call, you can't really right now zoom in or out of the screen, right? So if I'm a participant and the consent form is being showed on the right side of my screen, and I'm having a hard time reading it for one reason or another, the ability to zoom in and out can make a huge impact on their ability to have a good user experience. Small things like that you don't necessarily think about building into a telemedicine platform till you've been through a couple of these and realize that it's a problem. Also, the ability to reject and accept files. This might be something around verifying identity or other things where there can be interaction between the participant and the research site staff to be able to share files in a secure way within the platform. Comparing data. So if you figure this is a follow-up visit, that the investigator is going to want to see the prior lab values along with the new ones. You can either allow that investigator, if you build out your platform, to freely navigate through old visits, or if you know in advance what they're going to want to see, you can even have those things pop up at the times when you would expect them to want to see them. So a lot that can be done there without having to break that telemedicine experience and have the investigator leave the participant waiting for a significant amount of time. Signing important documents. As this crowd knows, we have to have the right, we have to meet the right standards, Part 11 compliant and others, to make sure that things like signing documents are done in a compliant way. This again is where having a platform solution where as part of that call, you have the consent document integrated within a platform that has a compliant e-consent so that both the investigator and participant can sign off as part of that seamless experience and not have to go into another sort of signing application in order to execute these documents. It also allows you to do things like, never have to worry about proceeding before having consent done, right? If you have this sort of workflow in place that doesn't allow you to proceed without certain things being done. Okay, so case studies are great, right? We've kind of gone through some of the lessons learned that we've had here at Curebase, some of the things that we try and do to apply the best practices around building fit for purpose telemedicine solutions for each study, and wanted to dive into a couple case studies. So the first one here, this was a drug study in atopic dermatitis, and patients were required to see a dermatologist to analyze skin lesions. We worked with the sponsor to make this a fully decentralized clinical trial. And there were a number of things here that we had to make sure that we could execute virtually in order to get this done. So patients did need to be evaluated by a dermatologist. We needed to get consent from patients. The investigator needed a way to capture high quality photo images of the participants' skin lesions. And they needed a way to compare those photos over the course of the study in a way that is, easy and part of the workflow. The investigator needed to be able to go in and review participant questionnaires, and they also needed to be able to schedule successive follow-up visits in a way that was easy for both the investigator and the participant. So our solution here was to really have this telemedicine feature as part of the application and hub for study activities during those study visits. So when I talk about one-click join for investigator and participant to telemedicine portal, this is one of those things that, again, until you've kind of, and I'm sure some folks in the audience have been through the experience of trying to set up a telemedicine visit for a clinical trial, little things like, how are they getting into this? How are they starting the call? So if you figure as part of a screening visit or part of some other process by which the participant is scheduling this call, it might be weeks in advance. So how do you make sure that they know where to go at the right time? If you provide them an email 2 weeks in advance, of course, they might lose that email. They might not necessarily use an electronic calendar where if you send them an invite, they would, readily know where that is at the right time. We like to have redundancies in place so that basically, again, we're learning up front which method of communication participants prefer, if it's SMS, if it's email, and we try and make sure that we deliver it to them in a just-in-time way so that if they like text message right before their visit, in addition to the day before receiving a reminder, right before the visit, they're sent a text message that has a link that all they have to do is click that link. It brings them right to the portal. They have the ability to sign in, and then it opens up like we would see here, right into the telemedicine experience. They don't have to navigate through a platform and try and figure out the right place to go. The link brings them right where they need to go. It opens up the video call, and the investigator or site staff have that same experience. And again, we can provide them with calendar invites as well as notifications at the time if that's something that they want. Little things like that can make all the difference so that you're not scrambling at the time of the visit to help the participant join the call. Telemedicine portal with the sidebar, we talked a lot about that, having everything integrated. And then features to compare the different information over time. The biggest game changer for this study was the ability to capture and record these skin lesions. This was something that historically we would have had to pull people into a site to do, but we were able to allow the investigator to utilizing the camera that the participant had to be able to zoom in and out and to actually capture the image that they thought was right for them. And then if they looked at it and thought, well, the lighting is a little off, they could discard in real time and take another image. So this was something that was really transformative for this study. The second case study we'll go through here. So this one was in Lyme disease. And again, we needed the ability to have these high quality photos in order for the investigators to determine patient eligibility. So patients were evaluated for inclusion. They needed the tick bite to be analyzed by a qualified investigator, a physician, to determine if it was indeed Lyme. They needed to be consented, and they needed to be scheduled for the blood draw after enrollment. And one thing to note here too on the scheduling, this is another one of those things that seems like it should be easier than it otherwise would be. If I'm an investigator and we're having a telemedicine call and we get to the end and it's time to schedule a visit, how are we doing that? As the site staff, as the investigator, if I have to now navigate away from the telemedicine portal, away from the platform, and go into my calendar and dig through things, and then when I find a date, express that to the participant, and then somehow make that appointment in my calendar, it's really not a good experience, not a good user experience. So integrating the calendar feature into the platform, again, having that integrated end-to-end experience is really something that improves the user experience, so that the investigator can sync their calendar, or the research site staff can sync their calendar, or provide blocks of time during the week that they are available, so that right there and then they're on with the participant. They can select an appropriate time, they can schedule the visit. That will then lock it in within the system, and then the system then knows, okay, same thing, like sending the notifications prior to the visits, sending that just in time message, so that they can have the link to join the next visit when it's appropriate. As far as this study and our solution for it, having that seamless workflow really helped us to build an experience that was really phenomenal for both the investigators and the site staff and the participants. That click to join, bringing them right to the spot where they need to be to start the visit. The investigators' capability to store, analyze, and really manage multiple images throughout the study was something that was critical, and really had everything that we needed in order to store within the e-source, everything to support eligibility at a later time. And the capability for, in this case, as I mentioned, right, we actually were able to make it such that the investigator could use the participant's device. So tick bites might happen anywhere on the body, and it could be really difficult for a participant if they're home alone and they're trying to take a picture of this, or to show an image, trying to navigate with their camera and see it at the same time. So with the ability of the platform for the investigator to actually utilize the device that the participant has to get it to the right spot, and then for the investigator to be able to click a button and for it to take an image. That was a really powerful feature for this study. And we talked some already about the appointments. We talked about that at length. So I want to make sure I leave plenty of time for questions, just wrapping up with this slide here, and it'll take about 5 minutes. So using this term fit for purpose, telemedicine technology for an optimal user experience. And what I mean by fit for purpose is all these things that we've talked about. Knowing early on, having your protocol and thinking about what your telemedicine visits look like up front. Don't assume that you can just provide a standard video platform and that it will make a good user experience and one that will capture quality data in real time. Having those specific tools so that they're right next to the screen, integrating that experience, everything from the calendar, the scheduling, the consent process, and making that workflow customizable, working with the end user, working with the site staff, so that they know once they go in and they sign the consent, that's done. The system knows where to bring them next. They don't have to be, fumbling around to try and find the next step in the process. And just contrasting that with a standard video call that doesn't really give you the ability to capture data. You have to use separate systems. You're kind of navigating away from your one screen to another if you have one. It's a very manual process for scheduling and not a customizable workflow. So with that, I do see I got one question in the Q&A there. So I will hop over here. Okay, so how did your system ensure consistency of lesion image capture, which would be key to measuring change? What validation process did you follow? So it was very important in this case that we actually provided the devices. This would depend, I think, to Scotty's point here, right? Depending on the nature of the study, it might not matter quite as much. But in this case, where having the skin lesion being part of the eligibility criteria, we had to ensure that we had the right devices that were being provided to the participants. And then making sure that the images, the investigator has the capability. Of course, they were trained on how to take these images. And we went into everything from what lighting looks like, their ability to get the right image, and then to be able to consistently take images in such a way where they would be comparable. This is where having as part of the workflow, as they go to take that next image, they can see the previous images, so that again they can capture something that is comparable, and they can feel confident in their ability to compare one image to the next. I'm glad to dive deeper into that, Scotty, if I missed any point there. I'm not sure if there are any additional questions as well. I hope this was helpful. I do see increasingly, we all have, right, over the past year and a half, going on 2 years here, that telemedicine, video calls, they're being used increasingly within our clinical trials. Maybe some of that will rebound, but I think we all here, especially in the technology conference, are hoping the no-go back, right? That we're really going to try and maintain a lot of these things. So just try and be thoughtful about your application of telemedicine. Make sure that you have a technology provider that has an integrated platform and is accustomed to building out tailored solutions on a per protocol basis, ensuring that you're able to capture the data that you need and have an integrated experience with the participants so that everybody feels like it was a successful visit. We do have 2 minutes left, but it looks like we don't have any additional questions. I do please welcome anyone, if you think of questions afterwards, or if you're reviewing the recording of this session, please do feel free to reach out to me, adam@curebase.com, curebase.com for our website. Glad to meet and chat about telemedicine or anything else that we're doing as part of our work. Really excited to continue hearing the great presenters as part of this conference, and thanks so much everybody for taking the time.